Oh no,
Sorry.
starting soon again. There we go.
We are live, and Mike is not.
My internet's going so weird. I'm going so slow right now. Brent, do you like see me? Because I feel like I'm going so slow, and
Yeah.
Mike's just completely frozen on my side.
I can see you. You're moving fine for me. Mike is frozen.
Okay. So that's on Mike's
Great
side. But hey,
start.
guys, welcome to our summer season of Comic Book Weekly. And I do see there's a couple of new people here. So we got Ryan Bragg, who said this is the first time I could join live. It's almost midnight where I am, but it's worth it. Then we also have Matt, who says, "Sup, guys, first time here during the live show." I think somebody who said it was there. Oh, am I pausing? Am I okay?
No, Mike just dropped, so that's probably what happened.
Oh, okay. So that's probably why the stream was going slow. And then the other person said, I think there's just a couple of first-time people here, so that's really cool. I'm happy to see that. Hopefully Mike will join us again soon. But we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of comics, and if you guys have like comic questions for the whole month, I'm sure we'll answer it. News-wise, we're gonna probably cover it all. But if there's like comics you read and you're like, oh, I wondered what Brant and Mike thought of it and Kat thought of it, well, I'm sure answer it for the show. Again, just a the summer season is just one episode a month, and then after August we'll be back for our full show that's actually weekly. So just because the summer is crazy, and Mike is back, so he's not in the Twilight Zone.
Are you guys there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good now.
What a way to kick that off, man! Holy shit!
I'm telling you, man. Mike got sucked into a different dimension or something. I don't know.
Right? It was like just as the music like kicked off, I got kicked off as well. Like all of a sudden, it's like you're not connected to the internet. Try again. I'm like, thanks.
Yeah, no. Hopefully, we'll be smooth sailing. But I was just saying that we're catching everyone up about the summer season. Thank you guys for the new people watching, and we're gonna jump into comics. So we're gonna just jump right in. Mike and Brant do not really have an official top 5. I do have an official top 5, but I think we are winging books here. And I was also telling the crowd, Mike, if they had questions about like comics of the month, I'm sure we can answer that. Try to stick to the news questions to the news. Because again, I think I've covered all of the stuff that actually came out news-wise. But again, I'm sure there's comics that came out and you're like, oh, I wonder what everyone thought. So
yeah, absolutely. We'll do our best to take questions and stuff. But yeah, so I don't have really a top 5 like Kat said, just for the pure reason I was out of town. I read some books digitally, I read some physically. And it's just like a mishmash. Some stuff I read like on Tuesday last week while I was out of town. So it's like the books will have to be, I guess, lodged out of my brain to be like, oh, that's it. Now I remembered what happened,
Yeah, same.
So,
yeah. I had a 4-day con this past weekend, so I was like scattered with all my reading too. And
yeah.
So, it was a little bit.
How did it go, Brant? I know that was like your first big long con in a while.
We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it.
It was a fun show. I got to meet a lot of people. I got to reconnect with some people. But yeah, it wasn't
celebrity shows.
It was a celebrity show, and it wasn't as attended as heavily as we expected. So yeah, but it was all right. We were.
Is he? Okay.
I don't know what's going on. I feel like it's StreamYard.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what. I feel like everyone's pausing, and why? How does all three of us pausing? Because the same thing has been happening. Yeah, I don't know why that's happening, but we heard.
Maybe we better get started so get somewhere. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about the first comic. This is probably the biggest one of the week. Would be Ultimate Spider-Man issue 6. So issues 4 and 5, we kind of had a slow roll going on, and in this issue now, we wind up seeing Peter confess to Mary Jane and his son about him being Spider-Man. And that was really cool. I like that. It's just he's finally, just letting him know everything. And I like how she totally accepts it. Really cool. Obviously, you get to see the battle between Kingpin. He's like powered up, he's like stronger in this world than he was in the last one. Overall, artwork was back as well. Great issue. I guess this was the conclusion to the first story arc. awesome book like usual.
I liked this issue, but I actually thought this is the weakest of them all because I feel like it is just, okay, finally we get to the point of we're going to reveal the identity to Mary Jane and the son. But the way it happens is a little kitschy where we get to see May is like, oh my God, Dad's like Spider-Man. Oh my God, how did I say that? I'm like, oh, that's such a coincidence to happen. And honestly, the thing that I think a lot of people loved is the thing that I thought could have been written a bit stronger was Mary Jane's reaction where she's like, oh, I'm cool with it. Thanks for keeping the secret, Pete. And like, I get it. Cause obviously you don't really want conflict with the relationship because we get so much conflict with the relationship with Amazing, but I think there's a middle ground. Like, I think she was like too happy about it. It's like your husband is still keeping a secret from you for kind of no reason. I still kind of never understood why Peter was keeping that secret. So I feel like there was definitely some jumbled parts, but what I like about this issue is it kind of got it all out of the way. Like, this is not going to affect the rest of the series. It's just jumbled parts for this, how this issue in particular worked.
I didn't feel like it was the weakest, but it was definitely one of the, like, the first couple issues were really strong. There was one other issue that I thought was just a little bit weaker than this one. But I didn't really mind how the family found out and everything. I do totally get what you're saying about Mary Jane. I feel like, maybe she should have been like, upset a little bit, at the very least. I know they were trying to show, she's strong and supportive and she can take all this and everything. But, he, like you said, he was keeping a secret and a pretty big, monumental secret at that could endanger everyone. So there should have been probably a little bit more reaction there. So I totally understand that. But I still enjoy the issue. It's such a stronger book than I ever thought it would be with again, we reference this all the time with the creative team on it. I just didn't expect it to be as good as it is. And the slow build of kind of, reshaping this version of the Ultimate Universe with these characters is it's a lot more enjoyable than because I don't know. I kind of weigh it against like books that would just like throw you right into it and you're in the middle of the action. And this took a slower route, which is a Hickman style, but it's still kind of an altered Hickman style.
Right.
And I think he's done a really good job of fleshing these characters out in such a short space, 6 issues. And we've gotten a lot of reveals,
I agree.
a lot of things have happened in this book so far. And this whole thing, the way that they brought Harry and Peter back together in such a different way than we could have ever expected is interesting. And being on the same side, at least for now, is really cool to see. And already bringing Kingpin in and having that, throw down, it's a fun book. So.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to
response.
I'm really looking forward to like just the future and just what other characters they would introduce and all that different type of stuff. I mean, I just think we're just scratching the surface with this thing, and Kat, you made a good point. I actually didn't even think about her reaction, but I was fine with it, and then like I like the son's reaction. What's the son's name? Is it Ben? Is it Ben?
I think it's Ben.
Yeah, it's Ben.
Yeah.
I can't even remember if the daughter's name is Annie Mae or May. I always is Annie May, and I think it's just May.
Yeah. And it's just like I like the son's reaction because he was just like kind of taking. He had more of a reaction to it than anybody else, I thought. And then he was like, "Dad, just don't get yourself beat up." And then this daughter, May, she was just like, I was okay with it, but then you're like this, Dad, so she didn't realize how serious it could be until her dad could get hurt. So I like those little, family elements to it. And I think as long as you have the family element in the book, I think it's going to be a good book.
Yeah, and my little problems I had with this issue, and I said it earlier, is just like it's this issue thing. That's definitely not an overall thing, which we'll talk more about Amazing Spider-Man later. But like I think this has just been a very strong book, so I've been happy with it. But it's so interesting because there's so many people who said I love this issue, I love this, and I I'm glad, Mike, you're like, oh, I see your perspective of you came with Mary Jane, because I do think there's a little bit of like, I love this book because like it's everything I want for Spider-Man. There is rose-colored glasses for a lot of people, be like, this is the best book just because, and kind of look over some of the oh, that could have been stronger in writing, and that's something that's interesting with a book like this, because you're getting everything you want, but it's like you're getting so much of everything you want that you're not being critical of it, and I think you got to have a fine balance with it.
I do like how in this issue there was action in this issue, because I think if it was another book of just like sitting around a table and talking or whatever it is, I think people would have really got upset, because there was rumblings about that already, that there was 2 issues with that. But I think with Giacchetto's artwork, he is like, the main artist, so they're leaving the action for him when he does the issues,
Yeah.
I do want to mention, go on, Brent.
I was just going to say, before you got to that, I think a couple of people said his name was Richard, not Ben. So.
Okay.
I thought it was Ben, but maybe it is named after.
It is. It's hard when you have like so many Spider books and they bring kids and,
Right, because I know it's Ben
I
in
think
some.
He's right. I think you're right. I think it is Richard.
Yeah, but go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's cool. I was just gonna mention that Kevin says I was confused with the Kingpin fight. It was basically a flashback scene, total little out of order with no real danger to Peter. I also agree with that. I think but I also agree with Mike. It's good that they had action because you kind of needed it. But then there was also.
Are you there, Brent?
Hopefully you guys can hear me now.
You froze for a minute. And maybe again. Yeah.
I think you're better. No, maybe not.
Or she's frozen completely.
Yeah, she's frozen, yeah. Well, I get
what a night.
Yeah, I get what she's getting at when it comes to the Kingpin situation. But I think as things got serious and they knew it was serious, that's when they bailed.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of understand the out of order thing, because he comes in, his face is all beat up, and then when he's actually in the fight, he's going to be okay because it's already been revealed. But that doesn't bother me.
Right.
There's 4 of me.
That's bad. Yeah.
I really think it's StreamYard, because if it's all of us,
it probably is.
Yeah,
that's crazy. But no, all I was saying is that I think it's interesting that they do kind of have an exposition issue, but they give action, but it is still like exposition. It's just like, this happened before, and it's just like, I understand why you need it in the script, but it doesn't actually progress the story. I don't know. It was just an interesting little. Scripting wise, I understand why they added it, because it's just like, oh, we need action, right? But then like story wise, it's like, well, you are just giving us an exposition scene about like, I fought Kingpin. This is what happened. This is how I got this shiner.
I mean, I think it was to establish, how they're going to go about like this little team up or whatever, and that they're going to go after Kingpin and kind of introduce him to the world. But yeah, a little more, Well,
we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes now after this issue. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Yeah. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about Batman issue 149. So this is the conclusion basically to the whole fail-safe story arc and Batman, Zur, and all that other stuff. And, when I got done reading this issue, I'm like, everything that has happened in Zdarsky's run has been reversed. Like, the hand is going to come back. The money that he lost is coming back. And it's all thanks to, like, obviously Zur going away, and then this clone of Zur that is rapidly aging. And, he was like, here, you can take my hand. And like, how do you just put a hand back on? Like, he has a robotic arm and he's putting it in this tank. And what are you just going to stick it on you again? Like, how does that even work? Like, it just doesn't work like that. That's it.
I mean, in a superhero world, I guess maybe it does, with super smart, superhero scientists and all that.
I don't know. And there was a point before he got his hand, right, when he went to go find out how much money he had. Did you notice his hand was just normal? It wasn't like the black robot hand that he usually has. Like,
I've been forgetting about that hand because they never really reference it.
Yeah, it was only until this issue where it was referenced again, since it actually happened.
I think this issue was interesting because of all the things you said. It's like they are referencing it almost felt like an ending to his run, but he's continuing the run. So it's like, okay. But I think it's because editorial shifted. So I'm guessing this is the point where they got a new editor, which you could completely tell. It's just like, okay, finally we're doing something new. It's interesting because I like the ending of this book so much more than the beginning. Like, I understood the emotional sentiment of like, oh, here's this other Robin, and you're seeing this Benjamin Button type thing going on. But I like the ending where there's this promise of the Bat family kind of coming into the manor again and him wanting to keep the family together. Like, that was definitely the best part compared to anything else that has honestly been happening to this run. It felt like, okay, finally maybe we're getting to new territory, which I feel like I've been begging for with the whole czar situation that's been going on.
And then Vandal Savage is the commissioner, so he tries to make him a deal, and he's just like, no deal. He's just like, we're just going to get a new mansion, and that's what he winds up doing. Just like legitimately everything is changing. But yeah, Kat, that's right. Batman's getting a new editorial, so it's like it makes sense to just kind of get him close back to normal. Now, I felt like the only thing we were missing here was like Alfred coming back.
Yeah, but I mean, now they're in Pennyworth Manor, so he's kind of there.
Yeah,
he's there in spirit.
Yeah.
And that the manor is the only thing that he didn't get back because he was like, nah, you can have it. So I like that fresh start, though, like you were saying, Kat, where they all come together. Most of them are living under the same roof. I think that's going to be fun. It's more, reminiscent of like the webtoon. It's all the Bat family together and, having adventures or whatever, it's going to be.
Which has been successful.
That could be fun. Yeah. And I like him having the money back. It is kind of undoing everything he did, but at the same time, it's like, okay, this is going to be kind of a reset for the whole Bat family. Now they're not fighting from underneath, but now they're, getting back on track and, just in time for the entire DC universe to blow up with Amanda Waller.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yes. And that's actually what I like, that absolute power is happening right after this. And they kind of time it perfectly where it's like, okay, if you're going to break it up, this is a perfect place to kind of include absolute power.
And I like how they gave him a lot of money because he's got like over $3 billion right now. Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah. So it's funny. So yeah, I mean, listen, that this little bit of a run here has been a little bit wonky, but if it can come back with an end result where it's better than what it started, I'm all for that. And if it means doing some funky things to get it back, hey, let's just go for it at this point, So
yeah,
it is what it is. So not a hard. I like the heartfelt story aspect of it. Him trying to save somebody and not thinking of him as just a clone. You know what I'm saying? And he reminded him of Damian, which I thought was kind of cool because Damian was like a test tube baby. So it's just like, made sense. All right. So let's talk about a book that Kat didn't even try. This was Destro.
No.
This is
I don't even know who this guy is. So I'm good.
This is Baroness's lover. So that's who
this is. Cobra Commander's second
in command.
Yeah.
So if you think I skipped on Cobra Commander, I'm going to buy his second command book.
So this is where you get to see this guy kind of see how his operations work, and you get introduced to certain characters for the first time. I didn't feel this one though, man. This honestly was my least favorite G.I. Joe book. I actually like Scarlet better than this one. And we never talked about Scarlet. Did we talk about Scarlet or no?
No, we weren't here for Scarlet. I thought Scarlet was just okay as somebody who knows nothing
Scarlet
about the character.
For me wasn't the best either. But it had Storm Shadow at the end of it. And I'm like, oh, that could be kind of good. And we can see where this actually goes. But the thing with Scarlet and Destro, like, it just seems like a G.I. Joe book. And it doesn't feel like it connects. And it could as time goes along. It doesn't feel like it connects at all to the Energon universe. It just seems like it's just, hey, this is Scarlet and this is Destro and this is what they were in their earlier days, I'll
agree on Scarlet in that regard. I I still like Scarlet. It gave me like Black Widow vibes. I felt a lot similarities to that.
That's what I felt like when I read Scarlet too. It was like a Black Widow thing, but I was like telling myself, please, Kelly Thompson, she isn't Black Widow though. You know what I'm saying?
True, and that's why I kind of like them throwing in like Jinx and Storm Shadow and all that stuff to throw that part of her world into it. So I'm really curious to see where that goes. So I actually did enjoy that one. Destro, as far as connection, I mean, he is using the bats that are powered by Energon, which ties to Transformers. So there is that.
Right.
It's a loose connection, but there is a connection there. But I enjoyed it, but I'm a massive G.I. Joe fan, and like anything that kind of dives into a little bit of the lore and reveals characters like the twins. I'm a big fan of the twins, the Crimson Twins and the Crimson Guard and all that stuff. So yeah, it's very familiar to me. So it's hard for me not to like it and to look at it objectively a little bit. But I will say, as much as I like the art on other books like Birthright and stuff, I didn't love it on Destro.
I think that was part of my problem too.
Yeah. It made it look a little wonky.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. It was a little bit of a disconnect there.
I thought the reveals were not that great. So, like, I'm a big fan of G.I. Joe as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I had my choice, obviously Transformers rules compared to G.I. Joe, but it's still in the same wheelhouse for me. It's still in that same time frame. And it's just like, I got excited when I read Cobra Commander. When I read Destro, it didn't have that same excitement. It didn't have
writes this?
That same punch. Dan Waters?
Dan Waters, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we've read many of their stuff.
It felt very like
not a lot, no.
Exposition, just like not a lot of action, and the way where characters were introduced, you weren't like, oh man, I can't believe it. They're just kind of there making deals, and I'm just like, okay, I don't know. It just didn't have that same excitement level as the other books, so.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. Dan Waters also does Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Okay.
Which that also doesn't have a lot of action. I like that book, but same way, like you see the creature in that book, and he's in like 2 pages.
Yeah. I agree with you. It wasn't like there was something special about both Duke and Cobra Commander. I thought were stronger. Mm-hmm. Again, I really like Scarlet, but again, there's little things as far as the G.I. Joe side of things that I just like gravitate towards. So when you throw in Storm Shadow and his family, I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Well, see, that was different. Even the art was better in Scarlet too.
I agree.
I like when you got to see her coming from the airplane with the skis and diving into the snow and just doing stuff like that. I thought was fun. Like there wasn't no real fun elements in this one. I think that's just where I'm at. I'm definitely gonna read it for sure.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying it was a bad story. I'm just saying that it was like my least favorite out of any of the Energon books at this point.
Yeah, no, I understand that. What I did like about it was kind of showing how he's frustrated that he has to be a second to Cobra Commander.
Yes.
Because he doesn't consider himself beneath. He considers himself superior, actually.
Yes.
But because of the circumstances, he has to put himself in that role and still kind of work a way, to get out of it if he needs to. So I appreciated those aspects of it. But yeah.
Right. All right, cool. So with that being said, let's talk about number 5. We'll just go to Kat. What was your number 5, Kat?
Batman. We already talked about it.
Okay. Brant, do you have one? Do you want to take a guess?
Take a guess is always a good answer.
Yeah, right. Let me see. Man, I don't know. I don't really have my top 5 listed, but you know what? Destro might be my number 5. I'll just throw Destro in there. Just talked about it.
Cool.
Why not?
I think I'm just going to throw out, just for the hell of it, because it's in front of me. And I think I'm just going to say Spider-Woman, because I want to see the direction of this assembly, because the end of it looks like they're much more than meets the eye, right? They look, obviously, they're like villains, and you get to see supposedly their origins in this issue. And then at the end, you get that Titan character, and he's Gremlin. And it was just like, oh, that's weird, you know? So I don't know. And they're doing like experimental projects. And I like how it is more connected to like Hydra and Viper and all those other different characters. So I did think that this issue was improved, and I'm starting to see the direction that it's going in right now.
I like the issue as well. Sorry, I'm distracted.
He's like trying to think of
talk at the same time. No. I like that she's suspicious of them too, and it's like they show up and like kind of take over and are kind of siding with the corporation over the victims and all this stuff, and she's just like really confused, and she's on to them though. So I'm really curious to see. Obviously, we saw the cliffhanger and who's behind all that, the team and everything, and got a glimpse into what's happening and how they became what they are and everything. So I want to see how that's tied to what happened to her son, and how that's tied to this corporation, and if it brings in what's his name, Roger, and all that stuff too. So
yeah, absolutely. Did you drop it now, Kat? Is it dropped? She's like,
I did drop Spider-Woman. I after those characters showed up that weren't on the cover, they were on the cover and seemed like a big deal, and then showed up for one page. I was like, I think I'm good.
They show up for the whole entire.
The whole story is about them.
Yeah, the whole story about them in this one.
In this one, were they worth the hype?
Well, this is what I said. Like they look like there are people that have been experimented on. They're supposed of like
by Hydra.
There's supposedly like information on them, but there's no real information. And then you find out that a particular character is working with Hydra, and it's not really the character that you think it is. So it was better. It was better. There is a payoff there. So it was good.
I think this is the first issue I didn't pick up. So, you know, I'm not that gonna pick it up, but I'm not too far behind on it either.
Right. All right. So let's move forward. Sorry, it's this long day. Let's go on to Amazing Spider-Man issue 52. We got Spider-Man, the Green Goblin guy, doing his
and he
thing.
turns back, right? Because I was a little confused by that, but he's just
okay.
Peter.
So somehow Chasm has the ability to just magically have his goo that he has and like reverses the effect on Spider-Man. Now,
so I wasn't wrong by that.
No, but the code is still in his brain. So he's still able to, he's going to turn back. It's just only a matter of time. So he's trying to hurry up and get to that, points of what he needs to do to try to fix himself.
Yeah, no, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. Literally, you have because what's interesting is that we've had an issue similar to Evil Peter, right? And we all loved it.
Yeah.
We love that arc. And I'm like, wow, why can't you do the stuff, the character work you did here? Because here is just like, I'm bad Peter, and there's no actual character work at all. There's just pretty much action. And in the end, again, things get fixed, and sure, it'll go back, but it's just like, I don't really understand the point of this story where they kind of already did the story before. Not feeling it. Obviously, we'll talk about him leaving. Not now. We're going to talk about that during the news. But
and then you have the team up between Ms. Marvel and Wreck Rap. And I'm like, man, man. I just like, what are we doing? What are we? And then we got the living brain that becomes the walking brain. And it's just like, my gosh. Yeah, we'll talk about it with our main topic later, but it's just, this issue was like, you make a absolutely great point. You had Peter become evil, and it would have been perfect right here, right now. And when he originally did this story, it was much darker than this right now also. Yeah. And just to make him evil again, but just put on this green suit. Oh, and let's talk about this, right? He's in this Spider Goblin suit, and then when he has him
magically,
he's all of a sudden he's magically in his red and blues again. Blue. Like, how does that work? Like,
that didn't make sense to me. I was like, what? He's got a magic uniform or tech that just disappeared. I don't know what happened there. That made no sense. The one thing I did like was that Norman is putting all these companies and subsidiaries and everything in Peter's name. So obviously this is just a setup to have Peter take the fall, which I thought was at least an interesting element and some kind of motivation for the story to happen. But that was pretty much it.
I like the art. I mean, that's like, obviously, at least, we're not a huge fan of John Romita Jr.'s art style. So at least you got good art, but it's just like, again, we'll talk about how we feel about the overall, run and where we want it to go when this ends. But even when it was announced, I'll say when it was announced the end of the run, the ending teaser is like, and Tombstone returns. I'm like, so like, we have not like really built up Tombstone. Leave? Exactly. And also, like, his arc wasn't that interesting when he was here. So it's just like, that's your big call to fame is gonna, because we've run out of things to say. Like, Gang War is the big thing and then nothing happened. Spider Goblin's a big thing and nothing's happening. And they're like, I guess they'll throw in Tombstone, I guess.
Dark Web happened and we got Chasm and Hollow's Eve. And it's just like, and wait, like Ben Reilly's all of a sudden, he's just like, I got to fix you now, Peter. You wanted him dead last year. Like, you wanted nothing for him to suffer, right?
In his defense, he did think the goo was going to kill him. He said that to what's his face.
So true.
Good point, though.
But it melted his suit away, and then he got a new suit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But it's, one thing I'll say about like this issue, and I'm sure there's people out there that really, really, or are people out there that really enjoy this run. I think if you've been really, really enjoying this run, it's everything you've ever enjoyed about this. Rec Rap's here, you got Chasm. And so I think this issue does a good job of delivering that. But as people who have not been enjoying this run, it's also very hard to enjoy. And honestly, I remember, I think we said this about Nightwing, or I said in my review, we weren't here, but Nightwing's a very similar book where if you love this run, that last issue that they're like kind of culminating for the end, you're like, wow, yeah, this is everything you've ever enjoyed about Nightwing. But if you hate this run, you're going to continue to hate it. So, and yeah, it's the same thing for Amazing Spider-Man. I just haven't heard as many defenses for this run. So
it's just unfortunate that for me, it's like, it's all these ideas. I feel like it's like maybe his heart is in the right place, but he just he can't execute it right. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, he's like, I want to create this guy, and I want to create this guy, and I want to create this guy, and we're going to have this gang war, and there's going to be Tombstone, and he's going to kick his ass, and, I'm going to make Peter Parker evil twice, and just when you think he's safe, he's going to be bad, and I'm going to make his costume disappear, and he's still going to have his red, white, and blues on, and all this. I don't know, man. I just think his brain was, like, all over the place when he came with this, and it just...
hearing all that, like, just all at once, it makes me think, like, if this was, like, an all ages, geared towards a younger audience series, those all would have been perfect. You know what I mean?
Sure.
All those crazy ideas just bouncing everywhere. I think that would have been better suited for that kind of story.
And I think, like, a character like Rec Rap is a very, like, kiddie character, it's just, and it's also, like, this book's all supposed to be funny, and it's not really funny. So I don't know. It's, again, we are going to talk about the overall environment to go after we talk about all the books, but Yeah, we didn't love this issue, and that's sad because I really did want to like this arc, and I think that's what's so interesting is that we don't go into every Spider-Man arc saying I'm gonna hate it. Like I go into every Spider-Man arc saying, "Well, man, maybe this is gonna change," and sometimes it does, and most of the time it doesn't.
Yep. And then what happened to the Sinister Six stuff? Like that stuff was actually good. You know what I'm saying? And then you go to this.
That should be your teaser for the end. I mean, that should not Tombstone. It should be the Sinister Six.
That's the problem. Like I said, all this stuff that's going on in this book, and it just never completely ends, or you never truly finish a story. Like you still got Tombstone going on from the very first issues, right? You had the Sinister Six. You still got Rex Wrap. You still got
ends.
Chasm. You still got Hollow's Eve around. You still got all these characters, and nothing has really happened at all. I don't know. All right, let's move on. We'll talk about Spider-Man later. Let's talk about Wonder Woman issue 10. I don't know, man. Like last issue and the issue before, I liked it, right? Mm-hmm. This issue, what the hell happened? She was in a freaking locked jail cell, and then all of a sudden she's in an island, and then she's fighting freaking what's her name? Cheetah, and then they're gonna eat each other, and then all of a sudden they love each other, and I'm like, then they're freaking flying around in the jet, and they fight. I'm like, what the fuck is this issue all of a sudden? I'm like, what happened?
This issue was Tom King getting poetic. That's what this
it definitely was Tom King getting. I like this issue, but I can understand
I know why.
I love it. I mean, the Wonder Girls,
because it's got your girls in it.
Got my girls. All I need is the Wonder Girls. But I'm on your side. Girls. Yeah. Oh my God, I love them. They're so good. They made the whole issue. Yeah. But no, I get your point of like. Is Tom King doing Tom King's thing? Because is it this serialized book you're kind of looking for? No, because it's just like, where's continuity into it all? But there's something about this kind of like essay format that I really enjoyed about this issue that I think Tom King does a better job in Wonder Woman compared to his other series. That he does say different things with every issue. Like the thesis statement is different. Most of the time with every other book, it's just like, well, let me talk about the same thing over and over and over again. This time it was talking about how her villain is different than any, a Superman villain or a Batman villain, which I really appreciated because I'm like, I never really looked at it this way. And I like that he's making me look at Wonder Woman in a way I never did. And the Wonder Girls, I think a lot of times different writers write them to be the same character, if I'm being honest. And this issue in particular showed how different they are and their different personalities. So I could understand why one will not like this issue because I do think it's not a perfect issue. But I think if you look outside of it all, it's a well-written issue that is not good for serialized comics. I think that's the best way I could put it, is that this is not a good serialized comic, but this was a really good issue as a standalone.
Yeah, so if you're reading when it has the characters inside, okay. But when you look from, like you said, issue from the next issue, it's just like, where does Sovereign go? What happened to her being in the cell? What's going on in the overall grand scheme of things with the whole Amazons and all that stuff on top of it too? Like, I don't know what happens anymore. Where's the Steel guy? What happened to him too?
Yeah, they reference both of those in this issue, and I could understand missing it because there was so much to read with this, but he referenced like putting her on the island with Cheetah to have them, because they were both the only two that could fight off the lasso and all that stuff. That was in there, and there was a reference to Steel as well. I don't remember what it was, but I think it was the Wonder Girls that referenced him. But I do think that if the Wonder Girls had not been in this issue would have been so much weaker, because
I agree.
Then the whole issue would have been, it would have been so slow and so dragged out. So thankfully they were there to break it up a little bit.
Right. And they're in it a lot too. They're in it for at least
half. They're in it a lot. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
It was a nice balance. But I get it too, Mike. This was probably the weakest issue for me so far. And I enjoyed this run. I really like this run, but I get what he was going for with the Cheetah Wonder Woman comparison thing and all that. And I appreciate the message there. I did think it was still dragged out a little bit for me. And I thought the point was hammered home a little bit too much.
I didn't like the ending point where he's like, because they're women. And this is coming from, obviously a woman. And I enjoy, feminist storytelling, but I don't like one that's kind of like ham-fisted. And I felt like that was like, oh, that's a little hammy, But I like the concept,
I think that's the type of character he's making him, though. You know what I'm saying? He's making him into that type of character.
Which is not
but I would have liked to seen the Sovereign himself in this issue. Like, how like you saw him at the end of the last one, even just for like that panel. Like, I would have liked to seen him actually physically drop off her at the island or do something, where instead of everything being in a box, in a dialogue box.
Yeah,
right.
Just very
you know what I'm saying?
Ambiguous, kind of I get it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So it just was so different from the last two issues. I guess that's what.
That's also kind of what I appreciate about this run, because like there's so many superhero books that have the same voice, same tone. It's like, all right, I've seen this. Batman, great example of something. Every issue, just I'm like, what issue is this? Doesn't really feel distinct. Right. Wonder Woman, every issue feels really distinct. Like I could be like, oh, this happened in issue 6 and this happened in issue 8. Like I like that, and I feel like it's different. And this is coming from someone who doesn't always love Tom King's writing. For the most part, especially in the last couple of years, I haven't liked Tom King's writing, but I just feel like this is what I enjoyed about his Batman writing, 5 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, I liked his Batman writing like 10 issues in, and then I was like, okay, I'm done with this shit.
Well, yeah, we'll see what 50 issues in.
And I was the first one to say it. I was the first one to say it. I'm like, how many love letters can we write, with the story?
I was still liking it at that point. I remember.
Yeah. Once you got to 4 love letters,
like, I like this stuff. This is good. This is a good. And then it just kept on going and going. And we're like, oh, wait till the wedding issue. And then that's it. It was over.
When the wedding came, that's when we all decided, this is not for us. But then also, like, I still look at that Batman run fondly, because then I look at like Heroes in Crisis and other books that I couldn't get into as much.
Yeah, Heroes in Crisis was definitely a disappointment. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Misery issue 1. Brant actually didn't read this one.
I did read it.
This is the Spawn book. And I'm just going to say out loud, like, I didn't like this. I didn't like the way it was written. It doesn't make me like the character at all. I don't feel like it was a good jumping on point at all for people. I really don't.
I was so lost. I don't even know whose daughter she is. And honestly, something I'm going to say, and Todd McFarlane, hopefully you do not take offense to this. This issue is the proof of why sometimes middle-aged men cannot write like teenage 20-year-old characters. When she said girlfriend, I'm like, please, this is not the 90s. Like, it just felt like it was just so not written by the character that they were trying to present. And I just thought the dialogue was pretty bad, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, people will say actually his writing style is not the best, but his stories are done well. You know what I'm saying? Like, they like his stories, but his dialogue and the way he when he writes in his little box, it's like his narration. They're like, it's just oddly written. It's just.
But it's also very 90s.
Yeah,
it's also very for something else. It's not the type of stories I particularly like, but that's okay.
Right.
There's other people who do really like this. It's just I just felt like in 2024, it's like I felt like I was reading a book from the 90s.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way it is, But overall, when I read the book, though, I felt like it just wasn't like, I don't care about this character. You're not giving me a reason to care. And you introduce this character and that character and this character and this character. And I'm just like, who are you related to? Who are you living with? What are your powers? Like, what's going on with this? So, like, again, for $2.99, like we just made a good point there from the name changes, right?
That's why I picked it up.
It's great to try it out. And it gives me the opportunity to try it out. But just because it is $2.99, though, I'm not going to buy this one. This is one that also I don't like. So all these extra Spawn Universe books have been kind of misses for me. right? Like this Misery, the Monolith, the Salmon Twitches, like those books, not really that great. So, and I'm just going to stick with right now my Spawn book and my Gunslinger Spawn book. So.
Yeah, no, I thought this would be a better jumping on point than it was, which is why I picked it up. I'm like, wow, this is like totally up my alley. This would be the type of book I would read. But I agree. I was so freaking lost. I just didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's move on. Kat, what was your number 4?
Mine was Ultimate Spider-Man. We already talked about it.
Okay. Brant, did you pick one?
Yeah, I'll go with Spider-Woman.
Okay. I'm trying to remember. I'm just gonna go with Nightwing. I thought Nightwing was all right. I thought it was good. I thought like this one actually finally gives you an understanding of what happens with excuse me, with Nightwing. You know, he gets set up, making him heartless at the end after he passes out. And I love that aspect of that story. I'm like, man, this should have been done like 35 issues ago. I'm like, but I liked it. So I like now how he is the one that's considered heartless. So it was a good story in my eyes.
I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's just like if you have enjoyed any inkling of Nightwing, you're gonna really like this arc. And if you've hated every inkling of Nightwing, you're gonna hate this arc. So
right. See, I think the thing is that Tom Taylor has drawn out this series way too long, and knowing Tom Taylor, I think he's gonna finish this series really, really strong because there is an end in sight here for him. And he's going to make sure he finishes it the right way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If it hadn't been all over the place and, Heartless was every, 12 issues or whatever it was, it just didn't feel as cohesive as it could have. But this issue I actually really enjoyed. And if we had been getting, more of this along the way, I think I would have been more excited in those, arcs that we didn't love as much. But yeah, this was why I liked this book in the first place. This kind of stuff, and the going back to that connection that they had, and they referenced the story of when they were kids and all this stuff that was building up to this, and even the little touches like you're not going to remember this because this medication in this gas is going to make your memory not form and all this stuff. And I love the setup, and I thought that was a nice cliffhanger to leave it on, and a really bad position for Dick to be in. So,
yeah, absolutely.
It was good.
Yeah. And it felt like this book was a little bit more intense, and I haven't felt that in almost this entire Nightwing series. As much as a great person Dick Grayson is, I think we've been lacking that balance of him being, a hero and going through some tough times, as fighting villains. We focus so much on him being that great person. Yes, you can be a hero, right? Besides fighting bad guys, right? Helping the city and doing all these other things. But I think we focused so much on that and we got away from, the villain, the main villain of this series.
I do also like that. I'm sorry, Kat.
No, you're good. I was going to get some comments. We'll do it after.
Okay. Just real quick. I do also love that, other things that have been, tossed in different arcs and stuff, like his fear of heights all of a sudden where he can't jump and leap off stuff, that played out here and kept him from getting away. So at least there's, little things that connect from these different arcs and different things that have happened to him that are still playing out. And maybe even all ties into the same thing. It's just not clear yet. So,
right.
I do want to answer this question because we gotten it a few times. Black Spider says, "Has anyone read Scrooge McDuck Infinity Dime?" I've been hearing like a lot of good stuff, but I did not read it. Just wasn't on my pull list.
I did buy it, but I did not read it just because I didn't have the time. It's a pretty large book, and there's a lot to read there. Yeah. So, and it's one of those books where I was like, maybe it's a book where I just will read and just enjoy it on my own, but I think it's probably a really good all ages type of book.
Yeah, I haven't read it either.
The other question was from Pope of Comics. Are you collecting the movie homage covers for Feral? I actually am. I think I'm getting mostly just movie homage ones because I like the horror movie posters. So
I got my copy last week of Feral, and I think it's the 28 Days Later one or something like that. I think it is.
Yeah, I'm not, but I love them. I
Yeah.
love the ones they did for Stray Dogs as well. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. So it's funny. We talked about Nightwing, and then we had Invincible Iron Man issue 19. I forgot that I read that one. So
it must have been really memorable.
No. It's one of the ones I read digitally, so it's not in front of me.
That was a boring issue, though.
It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't the greatest issue. I mean, you got Rhodey who's sitting there, gets away from jail. He's recruiting bad guys to defeat the Orcus Sentinels, whatever left of them, and then him and Tony basically come face to face and says, you know, you kind of screwed me over, jacks him in the face, and he says, are we even now? And he's like, yeah, and then that's it. The only cool thing is you got to see what happened to the bad guy, the main bad guy, as he threw him in a coffin. Yeah, Fei Long, and he kind of it looks like he buried him. So
yeah, the two things I liked about it were that we got a tease of a new team they're putting together somewhere at some point in time, and two, that Tony's catching feelings for Emma for real, and we're going to explore to see where that goes. Those are the two things I liked. I didn't like that it recapped everything. It felt like a filler issue that was like, hey, if you missed everything that happened with Orcus and Iron Man, this is what happened.
Yeah,
and now this is what happened with Rhodey in the middle of it. Yeah, so that bugged me a little bit, but I'll take 1 week issue for a few strong ones. That's fine.
The next one's the last one.
Yeah.
So, and that's wraps up maybe the relationship of Emma and Tony.
Right. I'm guessing it will with where we're going with X-Men.
But their relationship is tight. Like, Tony admits that he likes being with her, and that actually has made the book pretty good for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I think the personalities make sense for sure to be together.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move forward here. Let's talk about our number 3. I'll give you my number 3. My number 3 is my guilty pleasure book these days, the soap opera book, and it's Sensational She-Hulk. So,
oh no, I'm glad you. It's so funny your feelings for this book.
Well, now it's getting ready to wrap up, and it's like I finally have gotten attached to these two, and I'm kind of like they're finally admitted that they're a couple. You know what I'm saying? But what I like is I liked her struggle of determining, am I going to be an Avenger or not?
Yeah.
And she doesn't want to give the life up that she has acquired with Jack. How are the Avengers going to take that reaction? Right. And then I like the comedic side when they go back to the apartment and the place is trashed, you know, and I thought that was actually hilarious. And then Jack is arguing with the dude with wearing his t-shirt, or, you know what I'm saying? He's like, get that shirt off. He's like, no. And they just kept going back and forth with it. But obviously Jennifer does join the Avengers because she's going to be part of that Avengers Assemble. Yeah. What is it called?
Assemble. Which I didn't know Julie Power is going to be part of. So I'm really excited for that.
Yeah. So that looks better than the main book. And I'm like, damn, that's only 5 issues. I'm like, I'm disappointed in that because I like the roster of that team.
I may extend if it does well. But yeah, I agree. The Avengers aspect was really fun. I mean, there's some pacing issues with this book. There's definitely chunks of it where I'm like, did we need this? But I love Rainbow's writing. Even when it's this type of style where they're trying to fit so much, you could tell that this comic got canceled. They really are trying to fit a lot in this issue. But I enjoy her style. I wish more comics had that soap opera feel because that is some of the best comics. So I hope that she jumps onto something else. But she tends to pick very, very cult favorite characters, so they just tend not to last as long.
Yeah. I like that they kind of explored her feelings on her past experiences with the Avengers throughout that whole thing. Like, she felt like she was an add-on, just kind of a backup Avenger and all that stuff, and that Carol's and all the rest are going out of their way to make it known that she is wanted as a core member of the team, which is
right.
I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah,
and knowing that she's going there and seeing that struggle beforehand was nice. And her and Jack telling her he loves her as she's falling asleep and she doesn't hear it and all that stuff. The classic kind of like sitcom stuff there.
Yeah.
It was a fun issue. I enjoyed that part of it.
I have learned to call it my guilty pleasure book. It's just like something's on TV one day and it's just like that guilty pleasure movie where it happens to be on, and it may not be your favorite movie or show, but you catch yourself watching it, right? So it's almost like, for me, this comic book is, I catch myself reading it. And when I get done reading it, for the most part, there's been issues that have not been good for me, but for the most part, it's been pretty good. Okay.
I also like that it's a very quick read. A lot of times, like, you talk about Wonder Woman, you're like, I gotta sit down and read this. And the art fits so well for that too, because it's the same artist who did Runaways. So you could tell they just have a really good dynamic. So just like, sometimes you just want an easy read. And this is a really easy read that progresses the story. You could tell how much this creative team cares about this character, because there's easy reads that you could tell, like, oh man, this is like maybe a little bit too easy. It was just like, it's too popcorn flick for me. But it's just kind of the right balance. And I like this creative team a lot. And I think, as Tevia says, oh, why do everything have to be soap opera feels in comics? I don't think everything has to be. I think you should have action. You could have other things, but soap opera, to me at least, just means drama. It means you're mixing someone up, and like you're just getting characters doing some interesting things. And isn't that all you want in storytelling? You don't want the same thing to happen over and over again. Right. You want some drama.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those books where it started off rough, but then when we got this next volume, I think it improved. And my thing in the beginning was,
it found its footing.
I wanted Jen to interact with more characters. Mm-hmm. And what has she done? She has now interacted with more characters, and it's made the book better. And to Kat's point, you don't want a superhero book, I feel, in this day and age, to always be about, let me punch something, right? You want the characters to somehow grow, right? That's what you're looking for. And for Jen in this book, she's interacting, she's showing you her feelings and how she feels about being part of the Avengers. Where back in the day, yes, it was fun. All they did was fight, but you got to develop the character more. I think that's all we want, is to have these characters be developed. And I feel like this book does do that a little bit in its own way. You know what I'm saying? Where right now, what are we doing about Spider-Man every time it comes out? We complain about it because nothing changes about Peter. When was the last time anything changed about him? Correct? Am I right? Nothing. Nothing has changed about him. Run. Right. Since Dan Slott's run, to make the character grow. And that's why I feel
he's not even allowed to date other people.
Right. Yeah, that's why I feel like we like Ultimate Spider-Man, because it took Peter away from just being that bachelor and at least have him be married to her in this way. So we always want that character growth.
And honestly, even it's also just interactions with characters too. The reason why I even said that is like that way he just can interact with someone. He doesn't even have like a friend, if I'm being honest. They tried with Randy, but he was so a not factor in any of the books. It's just like he just has literally no one to talk to. So how interesting is that?
Right. Yeah. It's I agree with you both. I don't really have anything to add.
All right, so let's move on here. So that was my number 3, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think me and Bran have to go.
Yep. So what was yours, Kat?
Uncanny Valley. I really like this book. The pacing's really good. You get to learn a little bit about this world. I don't want to spoil too much because I know Mike didn't read it, but you just get to see where this mythology is going. You learn a little bit more about this cartoon stuff and why this boy is maybe special in that regard. And yeah, just like I said, it moves really well. You're on issue 3 and I'm like, wow, I feel like a lot has happened in these past 3 issues. And I like the art style. It's just the type of book I like. And I feel like it's not a nostalgia book. It's like it's more of a commentary on nostalgia. And that's what I tend to like with these kind of throwback series.
Gotcha. Right. Brent.
I'm going to go with She-Hulk as well.
Okay. Pretty good. All right. So let's move on to, I'm surprised you guys are kind of still reading it or sticking with it. Titans, issue 12.
I've been really liking this arc. Last issue, I enjoyed the girl that was introduced.
And I read that one, and then I saw it was getting back with Raven, and then I'm like, I don't know if I want to read it.
So I'm gonna spoil this for you because it actually is all about the girl. Raven kills her. Raven kills this girl.
Shit.
Yeah, it's a really, really good issue. Yeah. And like it all comes to a head in this issue where Raven does this in front of all the Titans, and everyone's like, "What's going on here?" And it's like a really good issue.
It is. It really was. It was a pretty good issue, Mike. I gotta admit. Yeah, that came to a head. You get another like little flashback of her and like how she was so excited they had like this initiative of text a Titan, and she was so excited to talk to Donna Troy, and that's kind of what made her want to be and all this stuff. So. And she actually answered her back, so she had this interaction, and it gets brought back up in the present, and Donna remembers it, and all this stuff. So yeah, it was a pretty solid issue. And then
I very much recommend reading this issue. It's also a really quick read. It's not
maybe I'll pick it up this week and read it this week. Since, like I said, the shop that I was at, I was like I think I could have read it digitally, but I didn't. And then I was at the shop, and like I said, they didn't have any DC books because they don't carry DC there. And then I was just like, oh well, I'm like, it's probably just about Raven anyway. So, but I'll pick it up.
I recommend it. Yeah, it's honestly, I've really been enjoying where Titan's been going since Beast World, because I feel like it is building towards something, and this issue kind of proved that, because obviously she dies, this character, but I think it's also going to be like, how does she come back, and how does the Titans react to this? And yeah, because I agree, like the Raven stuff has been a little prolonged, but now you finally see like something happening with it, and it was really good art. It was a good issue.
Okay. All right, so let's move on to our number 2. My number 2 excuse me, is, oh my god, what was it going to be? I totally forgot now. I don't remember mine. Brant, you go to your number 2.
I'll go with Ultimate Spider-Man.
Okay. What's yours?
Mine was Titans. I love the reasons I said. It was crazy. It's crazy.
It was a really good issue. It was.
No.
I don't remember what my number 2 was, and I had it in my head too, and I don't remember what it was going to be.
I'm guessing it wasn't a comic we talked about then.
No, I don't think so. Whatever. It's going to be a mystery for now on. All right.
Until next.
So then let's just dump to my number one, and my number 1 was Ultimate Spider-Man. So that was my number 1. And what about you, Kat?
Wonder Woman. I enjoyed my Wonder Girls.
And Brant?
I said Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, Ultimate Spider-Man. Okay.
Oh, I thought it was your number. What was your number 2 then, Brant?
Yeah.
That is my number 2. Oh, we doing number 1?
What's your number 1? Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Nightwing was actually my number 1.
Okay, nice. Gotcha.
DC week.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So that's that when it comes to the comic books. So I think now, do we want to get into our topic now?
Yeah, let's do topic. I do have a couple of Kickstarters. So I'm going to, just because we got the 1 month that we are not on. So I'm going to actually just share. I do have a Kickstarter live for another 2 days, but I'm actually going to share the Kickstarters that are going to be live when we're not here. So first is Beast and Snow. We have issue 2 coming out. That book kind of changed the course of our career. So it's cool to have issue 2 about a year later. And it's cool because we had Stepin Sejic, who did the issue 1 cover that was like the big variant cover. Now this time we have his wife Linda Sedgwick doing our variant for issue 2, and this is more focused on the werewolf side of things. So if you guys don't know what the book's about, it's a vampire Snow White who falls in love with Belle from Beauty and the Beast, and she's a werewolf, and we get to see some cool action with that. So that's one. And then if you're looking for a long running series that we've had for a long time, and that is Slice of Life, this is the coming out story for our closeted cheerleader. She's finally accepting who she is and falling in love with an anime character. So this is our baby. We love this book. So hopefully you guys could go check out both series. That's going to be running all in July. And like we said, we're not really going to be here. Question from Tevia is like Twilight Daughter over? Technically, yes, it's the origin story is over, but we are going to continue the series in a different way. Tevia, you got to read issue 8 to figure out why it's over. But you know, the title means something a little different now. So that is why we have to do something else with it. But the characters will continue. It's just going to look at like in a different way. And that will be coming out in the fall. So we're really excited for that book. And yes, interesting Kickstarter. Thank you. It's all on Kickstarter. We're happy with it and excited. So that's what's going on with that. Brad, do you have anything to promote, or do you want us to jump on to topics?
No, we can go ahead and jump on to topics, I guess.
Cool. All right, so let's go to the main topic, which is about, we have a lot of news. So we are going to cover a lot of the news, but we're just going to jump into that Zeb Wells is leaving Spider-Man. That's obviously was the big thing announced. There's actually a couple of big things, but, you know, we talked a lot about what we thought about the run, but now we're going to talk about how do you think it's going to end and who do you want to take over? And my big thing is, you know, I don't want to be negative because like I said, I jump into anything Spider-Man and hope for the best. I'm just like, I always go with an open mind thinking this could be the thing I love, because even in this run that I didn't love, there were story arcs I did enjoy. But there is definitely a part of me after 10 years of this where you're like, wow, it really doesn't matter who writes Spider-Man because they're going to just do the same thing over and over again. And there is definitely still that feeling. And honestly, this almost, I don't care. Like, obviously I read Amazing Spider-Man, but I have Ultimate Spider-Man. So it's like, if I don't love Amazing, and they come out the same week a lot of the times now too. So I'm like, really, if you don't love Amazing Spider-Man, just go on and read Ultimate Spider-Man. And the only thing I think that could be super interesting is if Jonathan Hickman's writing both of them. That's the only thing I can see being like, wow, that's something that's going to be really different and cool. But honestly, I cannot name a writer that could be like, wow, they're going to change Spider-Man. Because honestly, again, what I've learned is that it doesn't matter.
I'll name one. Daniel Warren Johnson.
All right, I'm ready. Yeah, that would. But I honestly think that would never happen though, because he's just such an indie creator.
Yeah,
right. And I agree with you. I just think that would be really interesting to see what he can do with those characters.
I think when it comes to emotion,
especially if they're like, "Hey, do anything."
Yeah, I think when it comes to emotion for the character, I think he can do it. You know what I'm saying? And wouldn't it be interesting if he was to do the art? But I don't think he would. I think they would get another artist on the book.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I think the time has definitely come for these two to move on. They got their run, and I think people, I'm pretty sure probably Marvel knows that this book at this point is not where it needs to be, especially if it's being outsold by the Ultimate Spider-Man title. You know, when I look at the overall run of this, I think I've enjoyed it. It's hard to tell. I think Nick Spencer's run definitely had potential, and you can see where the story was going with it.
I like Nick Spencer's run more.
Yeah. And I think it just got cut short because of everything that happened and just abruptly ended, you know. And then this one, I just feel like, I don't know, man, we're trying to tell this weird story with Tombstone, and it doesn't
have an identity. That's the biggest thing. Because at least Nick Spencer, you could be like Kindred. You could point to something. Dan Slott, Superior Spider-Man.
Right.
Yeah, this just doesn't have an identity, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
Wreck Rap is its identity. Yeah.
You know, and it's just like Ben Reilly, Chasm. Like, it's just, but it doesn't, like, you don't get anything out of it. It's like, oh, you had to return to Tombstone, like Gang War, Dark Web, It's like, but what happened out of those? You know, I just felt like even though there was elements that were okay, right? It felt like all he wanted to do was just put a fresh new paint on all the characters that we already know, right? It's just like, look at Ben Reilly, we're going to give him a new suit. Oh, look at Green Goblin, we're going to change him, make him good, give him a new suit. You know, we're even going to change Peter Parker, of course, give him a new suit. Oh, we're going to make him evil because, you know, people liked when he was, you know, wearing the black suit, so we're going to make him wear the black suit again. So it's all these things that just is shiny looking, you know what I'm saying, but doesn't really add real meat to a story, I guess, at the end of the day.
I think there were probably ideas that he was really excited about, and he got the chance to tell them. So, I mean, kudos for that. Absolutely. Right. If you get to work on, you know, a dream project like that, that's really cool. So, you know, for me and for all of us here, but I can only speak for myself. So for me, it just, none of them, like you all said, didn't have that impact, didn't have that lasting impact. This isn't a run that I'm going to remember, you know, as, you know, one of those big runs that I loved in history of Spider-Man. It's just not. I'm going to forget about this one, I think.
Yeah.
And it is partially because there were no lasting effects that came out of this. I don't think so. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there will be something that, you know, sticks forever. I don't see that happen. Maybe Paul's here to stay for eons, but if not, I think it's time for them to go, and I think it's time for a new creative team to come on. So I'm happy to see this.
And let them do something. Yeah. Let them do anything. It's just like that's the biggest issue. Is like, honestly, I'm telling you we're all telling you the truth. It's not the writer, because it has not mattered what writer has gone on to this book. It's just like you're gonna continue to do the same thing, and that's why like, you kind of lose hope a little bit.
I think that's true too. Where a lot of people lost it though was that buildup. Like it seemed something very big in the beginning, right? Where he shows up and the crater's there, and it's like, what happened to him? And you see that story, and you're just like, really? Like, this is what happened? And then the person that dies is Ms. Marvel, the person that you has no reason to be in this comic whatsoever. It just, and I think that's when people completely said, I'm done with this run, you know?
Yeah. And then, you know, she came back like, you know, a week later.
Yeah, literally. A week later.
I mean, it just, there's no impact at all.
Her comment, I know she's gonna be in NYX, but then like she comes out a week later and you give her a mini series of a book, and then right when your book gets interesting, you end it. Like we didn't talk about that last month, but like the book's over, and you're like, okay, you brought the Inhumans, you're explaining like about our powers, and you're like, oh, it's over now, and there's nowhere else to pick her up. I'm like, except this team book, I'll have 10 other X-Men involved, and I'm very excited for NYX. Don't get me wrong, I'm just like, what's the point there? We actually have a couple of questions. So I saw one question was from Emmanuel. Are you guys picking up every Spider-related title? I mean, we always try out most of the Spider-related titles, but I definitely drop them. You know, the only ones I stick with is Amazing, anything with Mary Jane, Spider-Gwen, and obviously Ultimate. Those are the ones that I'll always pick up.
So I think we all tried Spider-Boy and Superior Spider-Man, and I think we all dropped both of those.
I still read Spider-Boy.
You still read Spider-Boy? Okay.
Superior Spider-Man, I dropped as soon as I knew it was ending.
Okay.
So, Spider-Boy I like. I think Spider-Boy is actually a pretty good book, actually.
Really I just, you know, it's one of those things that's like, I got to cut stuff, and that's got to be one of them.
Totally get it.
Yeah, totally so I think between the three of us, we pretty much try every Spider title that comes out, unless it's just something that is totally like, I know I'm not going to like that.
Like Blood Hunt is a good example where I'm like, oh, I'm not really following Blood Hunt, so I don't need to pick that up. Mike Manhattan says Spectacular. I actually dropped Spectacular this month because I really don't like the story.
I want to see how long that particular story arc goes on for. Or is
knowing Greg Wiseman's gonna be forever. Like this is just a style of storytelling.
Forever. If it does go on forever, it's a strong chance that I will drop it because I don't like this what's real and what's not real like story. Like I like Arcade, but this Arcade story seems off for me right now.
Yeah. It's just because you can't tell what's what.
Yeah, exactly.
And also Humberto Ramos's art, and I like his art, but it's even hard because of his style of art. It's also really hard to tell what's going on in each page because he likes squeezing so much in. It's just, yeah. So as you can see, we do drop Spider-Man books. It's just certain like Amazing we will never drop. Like it could be blank pages. Yeah. We'll continue to pick it up. No. I don't ever see you dropping Ultimate Spider-Man. Again, a Spider-Gwen book, I will pick that up no matter what. So yeah.
I would love to see Spider-Man comic with stakes again, and I feel like we haven't gotten that in a long time.
I agree. Joseph Gore asks, Donny Cates would be awesome, but is he coming back to write? Yeah, I don't know what I mean. Obviously, he was in that big car accident. I don't know if there's been any words about him writing anything. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what his status is right now.
Yeah, I have not heard.
Well, yeah, I mean, you make a good point, Brant. Daniel Warren Johnson to write it. I wouldn't mind. I know Jed McKay is busy, but I would like him to write it. I think that would be a good fit.
It was a Black Cat.
For the
Someone mentioned Jeremy Adams, who writes Green Lantern. He's done
that would be
great
cool.
with every
really
book he's on. Yeah.
I mean, and I think Kat, someone asked if you were going to pick up Black Cat and Jackpot. Are you still reading that?
We all are. I am, just because it's Mary Jane. I'm not going to drop that. And also it's a miniseries.
I'm reading it because I want to see how bad it is. Like the last issue was horrible. And then this issue, like I like seeing how much Paul is not involved in the comic. Like the last time he's like, I bought croissants. And I'm just like, this is the extent of this guy. Like he brought croissants, and then he got his butt beat in the last issue too, man. So I'm just waiting for the guy to die. That's what I'm waiting for him to happen.
I like Black Cat. I like anytime it's Black Cat and Mary Jane just like talking about their friendship. I think the book does a good job, and I like her relationship. I don't think it's as strong as the Iron Cat one. I really liked her romance in that, but this is like interesting enough. Someone said no writer deserves the headache of Amazing Spider-Man. Honestly, I kind of agree. And I think that's the hardship too, is just the idea of like, again, editorial that I'm sure is so strong with Spider-Man. But then on the flip side, the fan base of Spider-Man, like it's just like it's so much of the weight to handle. And also there's people that go a little overboard and give death threats to people.
Yeah,
so who would want that job?
That's ridiculous. Like you gotta go that far. Like you shouldn't even be looking at comic books anymore. Like if you're taking it that serious, like yes, we are critical of our comic books, but we're comic book reviewers. That's what we do. That's what we've done. And us three, I know we go into every single comic with an open mind, hoping that every single comic will be good, right? And we always do point out positives in a book, as poor as a book might be.
Even with Zeb Wells, I mean, even with this current issue of Amazing Spider-Man, we were talking about, but this was a good thing about it.
Right. So we hope that's good, but if it's not, hey, it is what it is.
Not the end of the world. And literally, again, you have Ultimate Spider-Man, so it's literally not the end of the world. It's just like you have another book you can read. All right, let's jump into, because we have a lot of stuff to talk about here. Let's go to some media. So we have Venom 3 trailer that came out a while ago. I thought it was fun. I mean, there are some complaints where it's just like, there's nothing good here. I'm like, Venom's not a good movie, guys. That is the point. It's fun. Yeah, it's a fun movie where he could turn into a Venom horse. Like, it's fun. Like, get over it.
It is fun. I love the scene where they couldn't get in sync when they were trying to say I am Venom. And
we are Venom.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, listen, it is what it is at that point.
Right.
This is a movie where I think a trailer is not going to really do it any justice.
True.
Because you've seen 2 other of these movies already, and you already have this image in your head, like what Venom is at this point. So you just need to go and just watch it and see what it is about, and hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I like that his homeworld is getting involved in this. That's all I'll say. Yeah. That's fun. I want to see that.
I agree, because that's something that's like from the comics.
Into it?
That would be interesting. They could.
They could.
I don't know if this
but they could.
I don't know if this. Yeah, I don't know if this movie would be like where we would want to see him. But
no, exactly. I agree, but you never know. You got Venoms coming from space, so you never know.
The other news piece that we had that was media news. It's on the other side of stuff. We have Batman Cape Crusader trailer came out. It's mostly just names and like you get to hear the new Batman voice, which I wasn't like extremely impressed with. And then I don't know why you had a trailer of just names that weren't that big of names. Like I was like, oh yeah, I've heard of them, but it's just like
a couple
I don't
of
know. Tom Kenny, sure.
Yeah, what did you think of his voice?
Yeah,
the voice was just okay.
It was okay. Yeah.
It seemed almost like he was almost trying too hard to be like raspy. You know what I'm saying? I thought he was going a little bit over the top with it, but I don't know. I want to see a real trailer.
Yeah. That's like a lot of those names I didn't recognize. Like some of them I did. A couple were decent names, but most of them were like, okay.
It's like, I don't know if we needed that trailer for that. Right. We do have a question about the Superman photos. They were released a few days ago. I didn't add it because we tend not to talk about like paparazzi photos because what is there to say? It's like, cool, this is a photo they didn't want to release.
Yeah. I mean, Mr. Terrific, I didn't know he was going to be in the movie, so that's cool, I guess.
Very New 52.
Yeah. It is very New 52. Yeah, very much.
That's honestly the biggest thing I got from it. I was like, okay, cool. That's what they're trying to reminisce. And then the Lanterns TV show, that's been announced for a long time. They're just kind of teasing it. I don't know if there's a lot of new information about the Lantern TV show, but I did see that as well. And we'll get to the whole Joshua Williamson thing. I think we're going to be saving that. All right, let's get into some more comic news. I want to talk about Mighty Morphin Power Ranger teaming up with Usagi because Ryan Parrott is writing it. That's mostly why I was just like, I never liked TMT, but I don't know anything about Usagi, but I'll read it because Ryan Parrott's writing.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I like Ryan Parrott's writing. I like Ryan Parrott on Power Rangers, so yeah. I'm just not a huge Usagi Yojimbo fan, so that was why I didn't mark it, but maybe I'll have to check it out now.
I've read a few of Yosagi's Yojimbo's comics, but I never was like a super fan of the character, so this might be one I pass.
That makes sense. I'm gonna at least try out the first issue. We talked about this a little bit. Avengers Assemble. We were talking about it being a 5-issue. I didn't know Julie Power was going to be in it, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I like I said earlier, I think the roster on this one is really cool. So that's what has me excited for this book. So, and when I saw that it was only a mini series, I was a little bit disappointed, but maybe if it does sell well, maybe they'll make it into an ongoing. I like seeing these like off the wall characters as Avengers. I think I remember when I was reading the article, it just reminded the writer of like the West Coast Avengers. And that's kind of where he kind of gets this idea from, that's cool.
I think it's Steve Orlando who's writing it.
Yeah, Steve Orlando. I like the Night Thrasher is going to be on this team.
That's pretty cool.
I don't think he's ever been an Avenger, so that's pretty neat.
See, that's different. That's what you need to do with Avengers. Have some characters that are like, wow, that's a fan favorite. Let's see them on an Avengers team. Again, Julie Power is a great example of that too. This question is more for Brant and Mike. Are you guys enjoying the main Avengers title? I mean, it's never in your top 5, so I don't know how much you guys could be enjoying it.
It's hard right now because it's part of Blood Hunt, and they've got that alt team with Cap and She-Hulk on it. So right now it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is. Yep, so, I agree. I agree with you, Brant. Right now it's fun.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It's a little hit and miss before that, and we'll see how it gets after Blood Hunt if it improves any. But yeah, jury's out on that one.
Next up is that Plastic Man's getting a Black Label book with Christopher Cantwell, who did Iron Man, and the Patsy book. I just mostly wanted to talk about it because I think it's great that DC is doing characters that don't really get a spotlight with these Black Label books. So I'm just happy for that, and I'll probably give it a shot because of that. Nice. Moving on to Silver Sable returns to returns in general. It's going to be in Venom War, Lethal Protectors, and we know that Mike's a big Silver Sable fan.
Yeah, I think she's cool, man. I mean, she's been in Spider books, and she's been in her own Silver Sable series with Venom in the past. So I am excited for this, and it has the other Venom symbiotes in there as well. So I think this could be one of those books where you just, again, turn your brain off, just enjoy it and have fun with it. And I think that's what I'll do with this one.
We also have Bobby who says, are you liking the Blood Hunt tie-ins? I've dropped every single one of them, so I'm not reading Blood Hunt.
I actually am enjoying all the ones that I've read so far.
I think the tie-ins are actually, at least most of them anyway, actually add a lot more to the story. I think when you read the main event, there's really nothing to the main event. It's the tie-ins that, for once, actually are making the story better, you know? Yeah, and that's what a tie-in should do.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Up next is that the Outliers mutants are going to be introduced in Uncanny X-Men issue 2. The reason I want to talk about it is just cool. They're introducing something new to the X-Men, but still have this very grounded, familiar feel. So I think we'll be on when X-Men. I have to look at how the schedule is going, but I'm pretty sure we're on for X-Men issue 1. If not,
I want to know the person with the horse. Like,
I know
who has a horse there. And then you got one dude with a jacket, and then one guy that is a paraglider, right? I mean, look at him. He's just like got a flappy jacket, and he's flying from an airplane or something.
Yeah.
And it's Dave Marquez artwork. I think it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be pretty cool. We'll see.
3 of them got longer hair, and one's short. Could be anything though.
Could be. It's hard to say.
Someone says Valkyrie. I mean, I have a feeling they're new characters, but
yeah,
I guess
I think so
could be
too. I think they're all new.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna be like people we know. All right, let's get into Something's Killing Children's getting a prequel comic book.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, excuse me. I am excited. So you should read that, Brant, before you go back diving into the other issues.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to get to see, in this one, you're going to get to see the events that happen right before Something is Killing the Children issue 1. That leads to that first story. So I'm excited about this one.
That's pretty cool to do it that way at this point in the series, because you can, and anybody that's like intimidated to jump in because it's like, oh, it's 36 issues or whatever it is. It's like, okay, here's this prequel. This will get you primed, and then you're off to the races.
Then you'll be into the world.
Exactly.
And even the issues right now with Something is Killing the Children, these issues are about Erica Slaughter also in missions that she has done previously to make her the character that she is today. Yeah. So they're really it's a story arc, but it's like a bunch of one shots just to learn about her as an individual more. It's pretty interesting. It's really, really good, actually.
Maybe I'll pick up that issue. I got a WNBA question from Richard. Hey Kat, who you got the WNBA Roy so far? What's been shocking about what recently happened with the WNBA is that Cameron Brink, who was kind of like a great player, she tore her ASL, so she was supposed to be in the Olympics, and now it's like, oh my god, that's she's not going to be there. But I could talk about basketball as I wear my Michael Jordan t-shirt all day, but I'll stick it to comics for now. The other question here was, are you guys going to read Absolute Power? Yeah, of course. I mean, there's this event in general has been really, really building up to this, like this actually had story from 2 years ago. As like, we're waiting for this moment. And we've been talking about events like that for a long time, where it's like, why don't we get like build up events where it's like, feels like you actually need this? And Absolute Power is one of those first events where I'm like, wow, it actually feels like we need this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I'm on board with it, just like I would be with any, like a Marvel event. You know what I'm saying? I'll probably read every single one of them and and hopefully they'll be good. That's all you can hope for. And I think it's a type of event like this for DC. I think it's very important because I think it's going to kind of pave the way, for DC in the near future.
Yeah, just like Kat said, they built this up through so many books and months of building this up with Amanda Waller and different characters through Wonder Woman, through Superman, etc. That it's got me primed and excited for this because it feels big, it feels epic. So,
me too, Richard. I hope she recovers soon. She's got to go back. She's such a good all around player. Yeah, let's go into another big news piece from literally today. I actually just added it, so I don't know if you guys saw it, but the president of Boom is leaving Boom. So,
wow.
he's leaving Boom, and supposedly, Comics Beat says, obviously it's not confirmed, but speculation, that like the editor in chief of IDW also left, so they're gonna create something new. And it's interesting because I feel like Boom has been doing a lot of different things than they normally would. There's a lot of big names that they've had, and not focusing as much on the franchises they've had, because Boom has been more of a franchise publisher for a long time. So to see them trying to do, maybe trying to catch fire with more something killing the children idea books, because they've had a lot of original stories, which has been interesting. But I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means for Boom. And obviously you had the whole story of Power Rangers probably rebooting. So there just seems like a lot of new turnaround happening there. And I genuinely don't know what that means for the company.
Well, we'll see. Maybe there is a successor, in line for that, and they'll continue operations. I mean, I agree. I think they've done a good job at staying away from the properties. Yes, they have Power Rangers, you know what I'm saying? And but yeah, they've tend to come out with a lot of other books. I think their focus is more on the horror suspense type of deals.
And slice of life stuff, yeah.
Yeah. And their books tend to be really good, so let's just hope they're okay, after he leaves.
I mean, they've still got a pretty good staff of employees there. They've been very good at picking the titles, like you said, Mike.
Right.
Well, a big difference of what they do with Boom too is that they're not an Image Comics where you pitch them. A lot of it's just I'll go to you. And a lot of times, how comics works, if you're pitching an indie book, you usually have an artist attached, or you're like, oh, this is an idea I have for an artist, but Boom gives you the artist. They're like, hey, this is who we're doing. And they're more creative control. They have, and I don't know all the details of it, but there's definitely more of a 50-50 partnership than an Image, where Image is you do your thing, but do your thing, and obviously it's just a different type of business model. I'm not saying what's right and what's wrong, but it's just a different style of business. So I feel like they're going to continue doing that though.
Oh yeah, no, I completely agree. Just without speaking out of turn and stuff, just being on the inside of when Lisa was working as a colorist and seeing how the teams interact and how involved Boom actually is and their editorial staff and all that stuff. So yeah.
Tevi asks if they give the artist for free. I don't know what the terms of payment is for that, but from what I could understand and what I could think of, it's probably that they do more of a work for hire model with that. Because most of the time with independent comics, even if you are Jeff Johns at Image Comics, you're paying your artist to do the thing. My guess with Boom's model, they're probably paying the artist, and they're like, okay, I'll pair you guys up, kind of like a work for hire model, but it being still a creator-owned book.
Tevi, no, they're not going bankrupt. Just the president left. He just left his position. They still have the rest of the board and all the other positions are intact as far as we know. So
yes. All right, let's also, if I missed this, the three of you guys for the first Ultimates book. No, you didn't, because Ultimates we were not here for it. I thought it was okay. It gave me enough for an issue 2. I'm honestly very curious about Ant-Man and Wasp's position the most. I thought they were the most interesting characters.
Yeah, I like that too. I like the introduction and the add-on to the team. Definitely an interesting concept, as they were trying to get new heroes and it completely failed, and they only wound up getting those 2 heroes. So, and it shows that like Iron Lad can make a mistake. You know what I'm saying? Like he's not as smart. Like it's not as easy, right? It's just like, oh, we got to get back to the drawing board and figure this situation out. So I like the book. Was it a wordy book? Yeah. But once you got to where it needed to get to, it got really good.
Yeah, I liked it better than I thought I would. It definitely wasn't the previous version of Ultimates that I didn't really gravitate towards. So that first issue, like Kat said, it was solid enough to keep me reading for now. So.
Next up is Marvel and Disney are teaming up for a What If Donald Duck Became Thor. The only reason I wanted to talk about this because I feel like this is the thing everyone talked about 15 years ago. They're like, every Marvel book's gonna be this. So it's funny now. It's like, here it is.
So funny.
But yeah, I mean, it's fun. I might pick it up if it's a light week, but I just thought it was funny. All right, let's go on to the next thing. TMNT, which again, hopefully we'll be on. I think we might be on when that comes out, but it hit over 300,000 sales.
Wow.
That's orders, which is crazy for modern comics.
Impressive to me. Like, I get that Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is popular, but my God, when there ever a new book with these guys that come out, it always does well. But you got Jason Aaron on it, so I'm.
This also is I forget which anniversary, but there's an anniversary this year, a big one, like 30, 40 years, whatever it is.
Really?
Yeah.
There's also the follow-up of Transformers and G.I. Joe. I think it's like this is the opportunity where that people are like, oh, I get to go from the ground up. And we were just talking about Amazing Spider-Man, where it's just like, oh, the art's sometimes inconsistent, writing's inconsistent. And it's just like, oh, wow, you're promising me the best artist in the business and the best writer in the business. And every issue, you're getting something crazy like that. Of course, you're going to get a lot of orders.
Who's the artist on this?
Every issue is different. So you got Joel Jones, Raphael Albuquerque, one of the co-creator of The Boys is doing an issue. So it's like crazy.
Like
now,
they have.
I wonder.
That's some heavy hitters. Yeah.
I wonder though if this 300,000 is including variants, because there's going to be a lot of variants.
Well, you also don't know the returnability, because that's a lot of thing that people don't know how retail works in comics, is that they could be like, you get 100 copies, but you could return it. So it's just like you're buying 100 with the promise of, if you don't sell 100, let's say, that you can give it back. So it's like a lot of times there's back information with that.
Right. It's 300,000 orders. It doesn't mean these are copies that are not sold yet.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So this could be an overbought comic.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, that's all I was saying. Like you guys said, I was just clarifying. It's not 300,000 customers that bought this book. It's the retail.
And it's interesting, because I think it was Tevye in the comments said, oh, isn't it crazy that Ultimate Spider-Man's outselling Amazing? And we talk about this almost every month. We do not know the facts for this. And the only reason we know the order number is because that is an order number, not how much people bought. That information hasn't been out since pre-COVID, because Diamond's not the only distributor anymore. So you cannot get that information anymore. So that information is impossible to know. And also with digital sales, that's never been out. We never knew how much digital sales that any book has made. So we genuinely just don't know how many comics are being read. Because honestly, if you think about it, I'm guessing there's probably more people reading comics digitally than they are physically.
I'm sure.
And we don't know how many people are reading it. Kindle.
Right.
Like, I'm sure there's more people reading it there. We genuinely just don't know the numbers.
And then, like I said, these variant covers, like even if there's just a regular cover A, B, C, and D, that's not still including the one in the ratio variants, the 1 in 25s, the 1 in 50s, the 1 in 100s, and so who knows? So like, I would have loved to known if 300,000 copies of the main cover were ordered. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know, but this will be curious to see how many of this actually sells. I can't wait to figure that out somehow.
I mean, I think it's going to be pretty big. If someone asks here, any of you guys from Oregon, not you, Mike. I know you're from Florida. I'm from New York. I've never been to Oregon, actually. And Brant's from Texas, and I also don't think you've been to Oregon.
I've never even thought of going to Oregon. So
Me either.
I actually, when Lisa and I were talking about eventual places we moved, that Portland was like one of the ideas, but no offense to you if you are from Oregon and all this stuff, but like, isn't crime like really bad in Portland?
I have heard that from Portland.
Yeah, so we were like, maybe not. But yeah, I know there's like a lot of comic creators in Oregon. So
yeah, in Portland in particular, I know like Brian Michael Bendis, Matt Fraction. I know Rose City Comic Con's there. I want to do Rose City one day. So I've been to Seattle.
Beautiful city. From what
you mentioned Matt Fraction. What's he been doing lately?
I don't know. I just know that he's like best friends with Brian Michael Bendis, so I see his picture a lot. But I don't know what he does like in a writing standpoint. My guess is he just doesn't write comics anymore. He probably does like television or movies or something like that.
Man, I mean, I missed that Hawkeye series, man. That was so good.
Yeah, no, he's a good writer.
He did such a great job with that.
I'm trying to think of I think he did like a graphic novel or 2 years ago or something like that. He did work on that, but I think he had like a trilogy of graphic novels, if I remember correctly. That was a few years ago. He's been doing Adventure Man. Yeah, we just don't read it. So he's still doing comics. He's doing that like pulp book. I read the first issue of it. So there you go.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So he's still doing comics. All right, speaking of indie comics, Dark Eyes got a sequel. It's been years, and it's a book. Deadeye, sorry. Yeah. It's a book that I've been thinking about forever. Because I remember it was like, we're gonna return one day, and I'm like, oh, is it? And then it actually is gonna return. I really like it. It's like a vigilante book.
I don't quite remember it, but I remembered I liked it, but I don't remember the main story on what happened.
If I remember correctly, he was a guy who was on the wrong side of the law, and then he like took on this identity as Dead Eyes.
Like, didn't he have to like? Wasn't maybe his wife was sick or something? And
something, yeah, his wife was definitely involved in something. I don't remember what. I hope they give us a really, really good description of what happened.
It's been years.
Visual, yeah. I couldn't like when I saw Dead Eyes, I was like, what is that? And then I clicked and I was like, oh, that looks very familiar. I don't remember anything about the story at this point.
Any opinions on Uncanny Valley? We did talk about that book already, so go back and we'll.
Cat's the only one that read it this week. I
gotta try to see if I can get a copy.
Yeah,
it's a good book. We like it. I will skip Joshua Williamson for now because I'm going to leave that for last. But Jeff Lemire launches a new ongoing Minor Arcana from Boom. The reason I want to talk about that is exactly what I was talking about before. They've got this interesting new kind of lineup of big heavy hitters doing indie comics at Boom. So I'll pick it up because it's Jeff Lemire.
Jeff Lemire. I mean, that's all you need to say. You know, it's Jeff Lemire. I like how dark his books can be. I like how strange his books are, and I just like
character driven.
Yeah, they're character driven. It's just like, and they're all so unique and different. You know what I'm saying? That's what I like about his writing.
I like his writing. I don't love his art, and this is he's drawing this as well.
Yes.
So that's a little bit of a disconnect for me, but I like the concept of it. It's mystery. It's all that kind of stuff that I like. Supernatural bend to it and everything, so I'll probably try it out.
We have the question mark San Diego Comic-Con, just question mark. We'll actually, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, at the end of the show too. We'll be back the week after San Diego Comic-Con so we could talk about it. I'm actually gonna be on 2 panels, so it's been cool. To kind of be on the other side. I'm gonna be doing a Kickstarter panel as I usually do, and Mariko Tamaki asked me to do her spotlight, so I'm gonna be moderating her panel. So if you enjoy her stuff, I'm gonna be talking about Zatanna and all her different books. So I'm very excited about that too. Those are 2 stuff that's on my slate, but mostly just doing the comic stuff, being on the other side, doing like the comic writing stuff. So excited about it. And then obviously for us, we're gonna be talking about the news and everything. So I can talk about how it was on the ground floor, but we'll also just be talking about the news. So we actually like timed that on purpose so we can talk about
exactly.
Stuff, so.
Congrats on that, Kat.
Yeah, that's
thank
pretty
you.
awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm really excited. We were supposed to do it last year, but she couldn't make it because she had COVID. So she was like, "Oh, do you want to do it this year?" I was like, "Hell yeah!" I love her writing, and I'm really excited about it. So, and the Kickstarter stuff, I'm really excited for too. Like some of the biggest Kickstarter creators, and I just love talking about Kickstarter and why everyone should support comics there, because there's just such a cool wave of things and just some wonderful comic books on there. Speaking of Daniel Warren Johnson, we didn't talk about this yet. He's got a new indie book, which I'm really excited for. I mean, I hope this like outsells everything, because now he has the fame of Transformers, and obviously do a power bomb. And this book is how far will their parents go to rescue their daughter? I think that's very much in the line of what he usually writes. He does really good at family stories. So I'm stoked for this. He could be writing anything. I read a wrestling book. I mean, he could write anything. I will read it.
The only pause I have here is the art. It's the art that did the Tim Drake series. Riley Ross.
Oh, okay. That is a little bit of a downside.
Yeah. So that's my only hesitation, but I'm definitely going to try it because Daniel Warren Johnson.
It could work because it's an indie book. That's the difference, right? So we'll see. But I mean, yeah, he's got a great track record. Do I like when Daniel Warren Johnson does his own art? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's probably contributed why he doesn't do his own artwork in this book is because of what's going on right now with Transformers. So
yeah. So
moving on to speaking of San Diego, so Beneath the Trees is getting a prequel comic, but it's the ash can that only people there can get, which is a really interesting move.
Well, I think it's an ash can, but then I think it'll probably come out eventually.
Okay, if they do that, let's hope.
Because they released Transformers ash can before Transformers came out and everything else. So you see a lot of those ash can books come out, and then eventually they hit the like real copy comes out in shops eventually.
I know Transform, and I have this book. I don't know how much it's worth, but I have the book where they sold the Transformers ash can at the Skybound booth, and I'm so curious how much that's probably worth now. Maybe it'll be a similar vibe to that. If they have the trade of that at San Diego, I'll probably buy it because I do want to read it.
Please buy it, please.
Yeah, and I would. I would. I think I would really like to read it. It was like the Stray Dogs thing where I'm just like, it sucks that it's like. I learned about it maybe in issue 2 late. If it was like issue 2, I remember you were hyping up in issue 1, but then you were really hyping up after like 3. I was like, oh man, I should have really jumped on, but then it felt too late, and I was like, all right, I'll pick it up after.
It's just a good story. That's all I can say. It's something different. It's nice little mystery horror tone. Like, I mean, it's just good, man. It's and it's probably like a $15 trade. It's probably not
sure. No, it's not gonna be expensive.
Yeah, I will recommend that to anybody. And I really like Stray Dogs, but like, as in like, almost like what's going to happen next thing. I almost like this better. Like they're really neck and neck with each other. But this was such a fun read for me.
And with comics, it's especially with us. Like I've been reading comics all my life. We've been reading comics all our life. It's really hard to find a book that you haven't even you heard of, or you're like, especially when you read comics. Like we've been reading comics on a weekly basis for the longest time. Like, how do you find a book that you've never heard of or you've like never read? And it's just like, it's cool to like, I missed that one. I could pick it up because I genuinely don't pick up back issues very often. I don't pick up trades I haven't read of something because again, like we read weekly comics, you read so much. So it's just like, it's
you
cool
miss out. You're like, oh, well.
Exactly. So it's a special type of book to get the trades.
We tend to recommend to each other. So like, the what was it? The X-ray glasses.
Yeah, Specs. That's a great example.
Right away, I read that first issue and I was like, please get this book. Please.
It's great. I recommended it to everybody I knew. I was like, you got to read this after you recommended it, Mike, because it was just it was one of those special books. It truly was. If that came out with a sequel, I'll be like, I remembered everything.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It is. You get those special books. That's why, like, you talk about people that create books on Kickstarter and they got their own ideas, and then you got the independent companies, and that's what makes those books so special because they're different. You know what I'm saying? And it shows you the imagination that these writers actually have when they are not held down by like editorial,
Sure.
or when you have a character like Batman or Spider-Man, and we were talking about it earlier, the immense pressure that these writers have to write these characters is crazy, because everything that has been done. So what are you going to do that's going to be different, where someone is not going to jump down your throat, whether it's editorial or whether it's the fans, right? So,
or again, making money off your comics. And we talk about that all the time, but it's just like, oh, even if let's say you have a book in the direct market, it is still hard because you got to get the wholesale, you got to give this, you got to give that. So it's like also kind of feels nice when you do like a Kickstarter and you're like, oh, I own that. I completely own this thing. It's literally creator owned. And I think a lot of people who think of Kickstarter is like, oh, amateur, like, because anyone could post on there, but there's such good books. Not anyone could just post there, because guess what? You need to figure out how to make a comic book. And that's hours and hours of learning and making the thing. So I genuinely think you can find your new favorite thing. And there's just such quality books there that I think more people should try out.
And a lot of books on Kickstarter are in the direct market too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, I get books sent to me from people to help advertise that are in the direct market. And, I read them and I put them on Worthy Ones, and, I let everybody know, hey, this is coming out this particular time. You know what I'm saying? So, and it's tough because it's like sometimes comic shops don't take the risk on ordering those books. So it's just like, that's why I want to let people know that these books exist. So if they want to order it through their shop, they can, so it's a tough challenge. Tevye has a question. He says, do you believe the big two need to go away? No.
Comics would die.
You need the everyday superhero. You need those books. You need the Batmans. You need the Spider-Mans. You need the Hulks, the Thors, the Iron Mans. That is like, even though maybe they might not be as strong as they once were, only because that was the only option back in the day. Yeah, you still need those characters to exist.
That's still going to be most people's entry into the world of comics, I think.
Right.
So,
yeah.
From there, they break out and find the other stuff. Yeah.
Right.
I don't think any of us are like, I guess the only time you would say maybe you picked up an indie book first is like The Walking Dead or like Scott Pilgrim. Maybe that was someone's entryway. But yeah, for me, like I was reading superhero books for like probably 5 years before I even picked up an independent comic
when I got back into comics back in 2007 or whatever it was, obviously went right back to Spider-Man, right? And then my first indie book from there was The Walking Dead. And then I'm like, wow, this is great. Where is this author? What else does he write? And that drove me to Invincible. I'm like, wow, Invincible's out longer than The Walking Dead. So right away, there was really like my first 2 books back into indie comics when I got back into comic books.
I remember back in the day, me and Mike would know this. Like I was on Comic Vine, so I would like just look up lists of different characters. And I remember I saw someone who looked like Mary Jane. I'm like, who the hell's that? And then I found Adam Eve. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And I remember the writers of the website at the time, they were doing like video reviews, which is why we did video reviews, is literally Comic Vine. But they were reviewing iZombie, and I remember they were like, oh, this is a really good book and it's like pretty cheap. And I was like, oh, that does sound really cool. And that's when I picked up iZombie. I feel like that was like one of the first independent comics I picked up. And then I remember I went to the comic book store and I saw a book of like this high school girl, and it was Morning Glories. And I was like, oh, that seems really cool. So that's how I kind of got into indie books, or I was just like, oh, that cover looks cool. Or like that character looks like Mary Jane. It's like, it did come from like a big 2 situation where I was like, oh, this looks like this thing I already like. So, and obviously comics is very different than when we entered. There wasn't as many independent comics, if I'm being honest. There wasn't as many companies. So it's also just different. But you need the big 2. And, we're here always talking about the big 2. As much as we love independent comics, we're like, wow, there's great storytelling. There's great storytelling in superhero books too. We still love the genre. It's funny because I've done a lot of books that have been, very successful, like the Ever Afterverse books, which is Beast and Snow, where it's like, that's the fairy tale book we do. But I always say, like, as successful as those books are, like Folly Daughter is still my baby. It's still the book where I get to talk about everything I love about superheroes, and it's because I love that genre. I just enjoy it. Is it the success story of Beast and Snow or these other bigger books on Kickstarter? No, but it's the thing that I love to write because it's just A, it was my first comic, but more importantly, B, it's just everything I've ever wanted in a superhero book because I genuinely love the superhero genre. Which is why we read Spider-Man and everything like that.
Also one of the original like independent books that I started reading back then too was the Grimm fairy tales.
Mm-hmm.
Like I started reading the original series, like the very first one. And then I loved the horror element of it and the originality of the stories, how you took these creepy fairy tales and you created these characters. And it was really good for quite a while. And then Patrick Shan came and he took it over and it was really good as well. And, sexy cover art, which a lot of these books always have, but they were one of the like originators of it, but it got my attention. I'm like, well, what are these stories about? And I read the stories and I'm like, man, these stories are actually really awesome. And it got me more into like the horror vibe of comics these days too. So yeah, it's kind of funny going back and seeing the stuff that you read when you first started,
Yeah.
I got and Brant, you've been reading even earlier than us. What was your first indie book?
Yeah, I mean, it was Image, obviously, because I was all in this, Marvel, and then all the Marvel artists left, and Image was there, and that was where my indie journey started, and then from there it kind of branched out. I don't remember what came next, but I know I started, especially when I started like years later writing for websites and stuff. That's when I really discovered like the indie market and discovering titles like that with like smaller publishers and stuff like that. But I don't remember what like any standouts, like specific ones that like caught my attention. It was just kind of like it was a slow burn for me as opposed to, oh, here's this one thing. So.
It's also a different age of indie books, like we were talking about, like the house when Image was first starting. So, all right, let's go into new Ghostwriter series. Mike, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I'll give it a try, but I'm not excited for it because Benjamin Percy's not writing it. It has all the different ghostwriters, so I'll obviously try it, but my big draw to ghostwriter has been Benjamin Percy. I think he's written the character very well, and he very much, we're talking about horror. He gives that great horror element to a comic. And I don't know if it will be the same way. So we'll see. But when I saw it, I right away looked at the writer and it wasn't him. So I was like, yeah, well, we'll see.
The other thing was new Blade series is coming out. It's Red Band. It just kind of goes back to we had this topic a few weeks ago.
We called it.
More Red Band. I'm good. I also don't need more Blade. I get why they're pushing it, but then I also don't because the movie doesn't seem to ever be coming out. So I don't particularly need it.
My guess is that this is going to be obviously like the aftermath of what happens to Blade after this whole Blood Hunt event happens. The same writer is going to be writing this book as the last Blade series that just came out, and it was actually really pretty good. So I'll probably give it a try and see what it has to offer.
Other than that, we got Wade Wilson is going to die in September. I mean, Brant, I'll give you the first baton for that, and I'll go.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are. I'm reading the series right now.
Me too.
And I enjoy the series. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
But it's like this came out of nowhere for me. And I'm thinking, like, first of all, how does that happen? Because they made this big deal, and now it kind of makes sense why they're making this big deal that he can't die. But they've also introduced his daughter, who they've revealed reintroduced his daughter, who they've revealed has powers very similar to his. So now I'm like, is she just going to take over? Is she going to be the new Deadpool? Yeah, exactly. So now I'm really curious to see how this is going to come about.
Bro, if they make her new Deadpool, like, shit's going to hit the fan. Especially when we got the movie coming out right now.
That's what I was going to...
There you go, yeah.
No, I was just going to say, that's why I marked it down, was that they're killing off Deadpool. The movie comes out.
Right. That was the other point I was I thought you would make that. Yeah. It's like the timing of that is so odd that you would kill him off when the movie's coming out. It makes no sense.
Yeah. But I think it's 4 headlines. They're like, what can you do with Deadpool to be like for people to pick up the comic if he's just being Deadpool? Like, then it's like, all right, cool. He's just doing the same thing.
Maybe it's just meant for a gag. Like maybe he literally dies like he's done a billion times before, and he's just like, did you think I was actually going to die? I can't die. You know, it could be something dumb like that because he is that character. But the series right now is actually pretty good. Like, it's funny. You know, having his daughter involved, I think is cool. I like Taskmaster in it. And he's going to train the little girl right now. So I think that's going to be fun too. They poked fun at like micro influencers and, at that convention in the last issue. So and I like the dog. I think the symbiote dog is kind of cool because it adds another element to Deadpool that he's never had, right? Or not that he's never had, but hasn't had in a long time. It's like a sidekick, a partner. Like you had Deadpool and Cable, right? Well, ever since it's been like Deadpool and maybe some weird supporting cast characters, or he's been by himself, and it's just like, and he talks to you, and it just gets too annoying. Well, here it kind of balances it out a little bit to where he talks to his dog a lot, and then he'll make the occasional, breaking the fourth wall type of situation. And so I feel like there's a nice balance.
Yeah, definitely.
I honestly, guys are kind of selling me on Deadpool, but we'll see. We'll see when he dies, I'll pick up that issue and see what happens there.
When Deadpool's not in it, I'll read it.
Yeah, when Deadpool's not in it, I'll be okay. Deadpool was always the sidekick in a way, and all the team ups he's had. No, that's true. Well, I have a feeling we're going to see the same thing in the movie. But last but not least is Joshua Williamson is leaving Green Arrow and Batman and Robin because of burnout. Which honestly, that man writes so much. I do not know how he does it.
We talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah,
we talked about that last episode, I believe.
Yeah,
which is kind of funny.
Yeah. So I was like, how does he? Because honestly, like I don't know how he does it. Like just the writing amount of comics I have to write. There's days where I'm like, I don't know how I'm doing it. Like the comics, he's writing like 7 comics a month, and to release every month. And that's a lot. Right. It's just
and then he's in charge of an event right now.
And Superman, one of the biggest flagships, and then you have the Joe stuff. So it's just like, I don't blame you. And those are the 2 titles I probably take away too. It's not like.
And do you know he's writing the book called Once Upon a Time at the End of the World?
It's an indie book too. I don't know who he does it, and then he obviously wrote the roller coaster book.
Dark Ride.
Dark Ride. I don't know why I was saying Dead something. I'm like, that's not right. He wrote Dark Ride, and we said the ending. Oh, it felt a little rushed, and I think it's for all these reasons. And he was very upfront. And like I was saying, these are the books that make sense. I think Batman and Robin has been lacking a little bit, and Green Arrow. He's not the A-list character, so it makes sense. And he wasn't supposed to write this for an ongoing series. He was supposed to do it for 12 issues. He was supposed to do it for 6 issues.
6 issues.
So I think this makes sense. These are the books that he's gonna drop off. It's sad because especially Green Arrow in particular, I feel like he's had a great voice for. But Batman and Robin, I do think needs a new
it's
voice.
like you can almost tell the books that he was struggling on. Like Dark Ride was delayed a bunch. Yeah. Batman and Robin's been a stall, Green Arrow, it's been good, but it seems like it's been dropping a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, and then he probably got done with Cobra and Duke, and he was probably like, thank God those are done, but you can tell though, he put his heart and soul into those books. Like you can tell, So,
oh man, he's on Namor too. Oh,
really?
That's a lot.
Oh wow, jeez, man, that's crazy.
That's a lot of comics. I agree. Maybe drop 1 or 2. It's not like he's saying I'm dropping everything. And again, out of all the titles, I'm most happy he's not dropping Superman. He wrote an arc for Action Comics too. Isn't he writing that whole event?
He's writing that story.
Yeah,
and then. Well, what's going on with Superman is like you're getting a different writer for Superman every story arc. So you were talking about Rainbow Rowell. She's actually writing the next story for, is it Action Comics?
Oh, you're right. The Lois Lane. Yeah.
She's writing the next story for that. Yeah. So once House of Brainiac is over, she's taking over that title for story.
I forgot about that. I'm really excited for that. I really love her writing. I think she'll be perfect for Lois. Cool. Well, that's Brent, do you have more opinions on Joshua Williamson before we jump into the most anticipated? Okay.
I agree that those are the 2 books that he should probably let go. And hopefully it opens up other opportunities and makes it stronger, makes the books that he's really focusing on even that much more stronger. So.
All right, well, let's go on most anticipated. And obviously this is a little bit of a longer episode, but we're only doing these once a month, so
we're wrapping. We won't be much longer. I gotta go to bed too.
I can imagine.
All right, so I'm about to let's talk about we'll talk about Void Rivals in just a second. I did want to say just as a quick aside, speaking of Skybound, if anybody doesn't know, because we talked about G.I. Joe and Kickstarter in this episode, they have a Kickstarter that ends in like 14 hours for a G.I. Joe compendium. It's become the most funded comic project on Kickstarter history.
I didn't know that.
Did you order it, Brent, or no?
Not yet. I emailed them, or I messaged them and asked if I could get into backer kit to get it later if I pledge low, and they were like, yeah, you can do this. So that's what I'm going to do because I can't afford it at the moment.
It's $3 million they made.
Yeah, $3.3 million right now. So
I have been back and forth on that whole thing this whole entire time. It's just really
expensive, man.
It is. It's like $300 to get the whole. Like you can get just one.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't want just one. I want the whole darn thing,
Right. So. Yeah, so it's even for the digital is $30. So I'm like, maybe I can get it later in backer kit.
But I don't want it in digital. I was like,
right. No, I don't either.
I don't either.
So that's what I'm saying. If I'm gonna get it, it's gonna be physical. So I just want to put that out there for any G.I. Joe fans. It ends in 14 hours. So anyway, Void Rivals. That is mine number 3 and Mike's number 3. Fantastic series, and we get secrets in this issue. Secrets revealed about everything going on between these 2 planets and all that stuff.
Springer's in this issue, has been in this now too. Overall, great book. I think out of the Energon books, though, I think this is a little bit like underrated. I think this is a really good book.
I think it doesn't help that it doesn't have an IP in its title, so most people probably don't know the Transformers are involved in it.
Well, it opened up with a Transformer, and it had many It's had,
but not the average Joe. I mean, someone like us will understand that Transformers are in it. But if you're in the comic book store, you're not going to be like Void Rivals. I got this. But if you see Transformers, it's an easier pickup.
True, right? I got what you're saying. But it is a great book about these characters, and you can tell this is a Robert Kirkman book.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. What I love about Robert Kirkman is his character growth on characters. We were talking about that earlier today, or earlier this evening, and it's just like when a character is introduced in the beginning of his series, that character is completely different by the time the end of the series happens. So, and you already get to see the relationship established between these two and what they're going through already. So, awesome series.
Yeah, absolutely. Cannot wait for it. All right, so we'll go with your number 3 then, Kat.
This was weirdly went on my top. With Primer issue 4, it's a DC comic, it's all ages, but I've been really liking it. It was originally a graphic novel. It's about this girl who goes into this foster care. Right? Yeah. Okay. She goes into this foster care. Every issue they reveal something like a little crazy. So the issue 1 is like, oh, the mom's like working for this government, and then that's she's like takes in charge with these powers, and again, every issue you get a little thing, and I'm like, wow, this is paced really well for a kids comic, where I'm like, there's not a lot of superhero books that reveal information like this does, and it's a very easy read, so I've been enjoying it. And this is the last issue, I think.
Okay, cool. So Gromit's number 2 comes up on your
now it's close for me.
Number 2. Yeah, it was close to mine too. I just changed it up because I didn't want my list to be identical to Mike's.
I hope I can get this at the shop tomorrow. I wasn't able to get it last time because obviously I've been going late because of my tennis summer camp, and I can't get to the shop till 1 o'clock, and I forgot to tell him to add it to my pull list. So hopefully there is a couple copies there, but man, I absolutely loved the first issue of this. Everything about it was just so hilarious with the two kids in the truck, and you got this kid who's like a freaking, he thinks he's this skater. He's the biggest poser there is, and just like all this stuff they're talking about. And then he skates and he totally wipes out on this pebble that came from freaking outer space, and just seeing all that shit, that was awesome. And then he gets off on the ground. He's just like, how'd I do, man? And it's just like his braces are all messed up. Like everything about it was just so much fun. I absolutely love that comic book, and it brought back like so many memories when I was a kid and I was skating and stuff like that. Just a really fun book to read.
Did you read any of the like the back matter stuff, Mike? Like what Rick and Brian wrote in the back?
I read some of it, and he said that he was a big he was a skater himself, so that's kind of like where it, this story came from, which actually kind of puts a more like humanized thought in my brain when it comes to him, because he's always so serious about his writing,
Right. And I believe Brian said that like that fall, like elements of that fall actually happened to him. Because he tried to be a skater and wasn't good at it.
Right.
So it's just like real elements of both of their characters in the book. So I thought
it's also cool that it's just like a slice of life comic.
Yeah,
it's very specific, but it's slice of life where you just don't really get that as often in comics, which is weird to say, because you think it's like built into comics. But in the direct market in particular, we do not get slice of life comics.
And I think what I like about it was like, it's like teenage boys. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, I remember that time that, you know, when you're like, 13 years old and all that stuff. Like, I was like, man, that's me. Like, I could relate to that,
Sure.
So,
and it's a period piece, right? It's like the 90s, I think.
Yeah.
It's the 80s. It's the mid 80s.
Okay. Is it? Yeah, I think it is mid 80s. Yeah. So really cool. Really fun book. All right. So Spider-Gwen, the Ghost Spider #2, that is, I really enjoyed that first issue. We talked about that on the show.
But that's for all the reasons you just said. I really liked the first issue. I thought it was a really well balanced first issue, and I'm glad to get Gwen on a monthly basis, and I hope it's a consistent book.
Yeah, me too.
I hope it gets better for me.
Me too. I hope for your sake too.
Yeah, I just want to know, like, I need more information. I need more to get a feel for this book at this point.
Right. I get it. All right, so my #2 is Absolute Power Ground Zero, just because I want to see how this whole thing starts to kick off. Okay. We talked about the build up earlier in the show, so I won't repeat that. But yeah, I'm just really curious to see how this gets going.
That was close for me too, man. There's a lot of books coming out tomorrow, so there was a lot of things I wanted to put in my top, and I was like, wait, there's like 16 books coming out. Like Pharaoh comes out, there's a lot of titles coming out. So
right. All right, and but one that you did put on your list is Zatanna, Bring Down the House, which you talked about a little bit. You kind of alluded to it earlier, but yeah.
I did, yeah. Like I said, I'm going to be interviewing Mariko, but even before that, I'm really excited for this book. I think it's the same artist who did Spider-Woman back in the day, the pregnancy, the pregnancy story arc. So we got great art. Got Mariko, who I think could really nail this type of story. One of the first, I think it was a Black Label book. One of the first Black Label books was her Supergirl series. I love Being Super. It's one of my favorite comics of all time. And it kind of feels like it's a similar vibe. Also, you never get to see Zatanna in this outfit and this version of Zatanna. Usually, it's always like the goth Zatanna, which is not usually my thing. So there's just everything about it just seems cool. And again, we keep saying it. It's nice to get something that's not Superman and Batman. That's a title.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, I'm picking this one up too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. All right, and finally, mine and Mike's #1. Somebody asked about it earlier in the show. Rook Exodus #3. Love this book. This is top of the list book for me. So
yeah, this is the same thing. It's just a next level book with phenomenal artwork. Very interesting story. We're getting introduced to, I guess, the main enemy in this book, so we'll see what happens with it going forward. Like, obviously they're stuck on this planet. What are they going to do to survive on this planet? And and how relationships build and just all this stuff, man. There's just so much to this book that I want to figure out, and I just feel like when a new issue comes out, I'm like, man, I need more, I just want to read more of it.
Yeah, same.
Great book.
Yeah.
We got a question here from Mike Manhattan. He said, are you guys still reading? Yeah, you got it. Helen of Windhorn. So
I read the first issue.
I read the first issue and I actually liked it, but then I guess I started reading the second issue and then I didn't enjoy it as much. So again, it's like it's that Tom King, man. It's like he's so heavy-handed with his writing, and it's just there's times where you just gotta be in that mood and be prepared to read his style of writing,
Yeah, I read the first issue, and then the second issue came out a week. I just didn't have time to read everything, or it was like a couple of books I didn't get to, and that was one of them, and I just forgot about it after that, honestly.
Right. And you're like, oh, well, now I'm not reading it anymore.
Yeah, like first issue.
Yeah, I didn't like the first issue, but I guess we all don't read it, but I hope you're enjoying it, Mike.
Yeah. But that's it. That's our most anticipated for this week.
We will be back next month, so we won't be back next week. We are still on our summer vacay. So the week after San Diego Comic-Con is going to be the week we are back. So, and then after that, we'll have one more month, and then we'll be back on the weekly schedule. But thank you guys for being patient. I hope this showed you guys. Yes, we will catch up with everything we missed in the month, and we will still have a great show once a month during the summer. I think this show really proved that.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining. Thanks for watching this late. Have a great new comic book day. Remember, subscribe to Comic Book Weekly if you want to watch all our shows that we've done in our past. Also, subscribe to my channel, Comic Book Corner 2.0, where you can also watch this episode, all of my videos that I do, during the week. And make sure you subscribe to Only Good Comics and Comic Uno as well. And hit those the bell, and don't forget the thumbs up and all that great stuff, guys. So once again, happy new comic book day. We'll see you on July 30th. Enjoy